Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy whose videos you'd have to be mad Mikkleson to skip, and this video we're breaking down Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. It's difficult to discuss this movie without at least acknowledging the recasting of Johnny Depp, all the recent stuff with Ezra Miller, and of course J.K. Rowling, the three of which have been trending on Twitter almost every day for the past couple of weeks. I have my own opinions on all the situations, but I'm just going to keep them out of this video and focus on the film itself, otherwise we'll be here all day discussing the ins and outs of what's been going on behind the scenes. Hope you appreciate that, and the film very much revolves around a creature called a Chillin that's able to look into someone's soul and see whether they've been naughty or nice. Think of the Sorting Hat, but without the slick voice of Leslie Phillips. This is a highly sought after creature because it somewhat has the ability of precognition, and it's able to look into someone's soul and see their darkest desires. God damn it, you've seen this somewhere before, and because of its gifts, it's used to decide who will become the supreme head of the International Confederation of Wizards. Attaining this would make one the king of the world, and Grindelwald seeks after these beasts so that he can manipulate their abilities. That's the basic plot of the film, and earlier in the movie we pick up with Newt, who's attempting to track one down. He comes across one in the process of giving birth, which is when Credence Barebone arrives with Grindelwald's acolytes. They've been chilling like a villain and end up killing the Chillin, and Credence takes the newborn to Grindelwald, who ends its life and puts a spell on its corpse. However, it turns out that the Chillin gave birth to twins, and Newt takes the other. Now I know Ezra is non-binary and goes by they and them, but for the character of Credence, I'll be using he and him just as he's described as being a male. Disclaimer over. Now, caught in the middle of this is Queenie, who I totally forgot defected until this week when I rewatched the first two films. Was always a bit of a weird character term for me that kinda came out of the blue, especially as she'd heard nothing other than how bad Grindelwald was for 2 whole movies. She can read people's thoughts and would know that Grindelwald was a bad guy, but his speech about allowing magic people to live without restrictions could have added to her motivation. She of course wanted to be with Jacob, which would be frowned upon because he's a muggle and he kinda brings her back from the brink. Now through her we see all the bad that Grindelwald does, and on the opposite side of this we have Dumbledore calling on Newt, his brother, and some others to stop the villain because he's unable to. From the first scene, the movie makes it crystal clear that they're in love, and due to the pact that they made, they can't harm the other. Thus they very much have to use the characters as pawns, and everyone in the movie is pulled into their rivalry, which asks whether Dumbledore cares about people or if he just sees them as a means to an end. Now come the end of the movie, they are able to fight because the blood oath breaks. How this happens isn't spelled out exactly, but it's likely because Dumbledore goes to protect Credence whilst Grindelwald tries to kill him. Potentially, when both carry out this action, it negates the other, which breaks the oath, or it could just be lazy writing. Now Grindelwald is a seer, which basically means that he can look into the future, and thus the plans that Dumbledore's forces make have to be confusing. The plot kinda jumps all over the place a bit, and it's steeped in politics, even though they have the stupidest way to decide a leader ever. Bowing to public pressure, German Minister for Magic Anton Vogel ends up allowing Grindelwald to run, and the villain takes the possessed body of the Chillin to the election. Typically, these beasts bow before someone in order to show that they are worthy, and being under his control, it makes it look like he's who should be put in charge of everything. However, the homie Newt and his team sneak the second Chillin in, and using several suitcases that all look the same, they not only confuse Grindelwald, but manage to get their guy close to the election. Credence points out that the one that's Team Grindelwald is dead, and the living one drops in front of Dumbledore. However, he doesn't want to lead, and it's often said that the best leader you can have is someone who doesn't want to do it. It's kinda weird seeing a movie that's basically about election fraud, and I was expecting Credence to pop in and say, "Stop the steal." Lots of social commentary, and thus the leadership position falls to Santos. From this point on, Grindelwald takes things out on Credence, who of course caused his mission to fail. Now Credence is a Dumbledore, and we learn that he's actually the son of Aberforth. Aberforth feels extremely guilty over what happened with his son, and he communicates to him through mirrors at several points in the movie. Sadly, Credence is dying, and we discover that because he's an Obscurial, that he's living on borrowed time. An Obscurious is a parasite that attaches itself to a young wizard or witch that has been told they can't use their magic in an abusive manner. Harry Potter never got one, for reasons, and most kids that are affected by this end up dying quite young, which explains why Grindelwald and co. want to free their people from the secrecy they have to live in. Now we discover that this parasite is actually killing Credence, and we end the movie with him being reunited with his father. The pair go off together to spend what little time they have left with each other, and knowing what we know about the Harry Potter movies, Credence, or rather Aurelius, doesn't live long enough to meet Harry. Due to the controversy around Ezra, they might even kill the character off screen, and who knows what's going to happen really. The series was supposed to be 5 films long, but they do kind of wrap up most of the arcs here, so if they want to end it early, yeah, then they easily can. Now, I kind of jumped ahead a bit there, and we should really be focusing on Grindelwald and Dumbledore. Though the blood oath between the pair is broken in the end, they decide to lower their wands because deep down they still love each other. After hearing their heartbeats, both walk away from the fight, and Grindelwald makes off. However, Dumbledore is told to not stop hunting Grindelwald, though he does seem torn between his duty and his heart. Now, we know from the expanded lore that both Grindelwald and Dumbledore have a legendary showdown in 1945, aka the end of the Second World War. This film is actually set in 1932, and therefore we're gonna have to have some major time differences between the next 2 movies if that's to happen as the final showdown. We of course could set the next film in 1939, aka the beginning of the Second World War, and then have the final one culminate at its closing. J.K. Rowling has hinted that both the war and Grindelwald's one are very much linked with one another, and that they're meant to be parallels. The creative team behind the film have said they'd love to go to Japan, and with the country being a key figure in the war, we might end up heading there so more politics can play out. Now, I really wonder if they're setting up to finish in Germany so that, just as the Nazis fall, Grindelwald does too. As I said, it's likely going to culminate in 1945, with not only the end of the war, but also the battle between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Now, another thing I think we need to talk about is Tina, who was a series mainstay. However, she's had a massively reduced role, and she only shows up briefly at the end of the film. Though I promise to keep drama out of the video, I feel like she has to be touched upon because her statements outside of the movie may have affected her character's appearance. Now, back in 2020, Waterston shared an article about how trans women pose no threat. She stated that because she's associated with Fantastic Beasts that she had to cede a position, which many have seen as her throwing shots. J.K. Rowling is a screenwriter on the film, and though we'll probably never get it confirmed, there are theories that she reduced Catherine's role due to the statement. Early on in the movie, we learn that she's the head of the Aurora office at Mikkleson, and though this would be the perfect mission for her to show up to, she's completely absent. Bit weird, and in the end, Jacob gets to keep his wand as a memento, he marries Queenie, and Newt finally comes across Tina outside. They have a bit of flirty back and forth before they take Tina inside so Newt can continue his practice for his best man speech. He then spots Dumbledore on a bench, who then thanks him for helping him to stop Grindelwald. Newt says he'd do it again if asked, which likely sets up what's going to happen down the line. Dumbledore ends up looking on this new union of love, thinking about the bittersweet side of his one with Grindelwald. That ends the film, and in some way culminates the journey, though we know we will likely get more. Now, as for my thoughts on the film, I'm kind of at a loss with this franchise. Harry Potter really set the bar this trilogy has struggled to live up to, and even without the issues outside of the movie, I think it just falls flat for a number of reasons. Mads just isn't as intimidating as Johnny Depp is, and though he's a great actor, he just kinda always plays Mads Mikkleson, which leaves it feeling a bit one note. The election storyline doesn't really hold up to scrutiny, and there's absolutely no way that a democratic process would rely on a magical horse to decide who gets to rule over everything. On top of this, it's now been announced by Warner Brothers that the lines that hint to a gay relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald will be cut for China. If representation is so easy to remove, then it feels like they're just pandering, and I think that Warner Brothers are just cowards for cutting something that they made so integral to the plot in the versions that they give to the East. It's clear they don't really care about this stuff, and are only just doing it for the money and to basically throw the West a bone. All around, I just don't know what they can do with this series, and with it being something that could be perceived as a closing chapter, I kinda think they should maybe just end stuff here, move over to Cursed Child, and then just fill in what happened to end this series in a flashback. I feel really disappointed after watching it, and it scores a 5 out of 10. I'd of course love to hear your thoughts. I know there's people who enjoyed the movie, so yeah, I'm happy to hear why you liked it, and it might make me appreciate it more, so you know, if you enjoyed it, then leave your thoughts in the comments below. We are in a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of Spider-Man No Way Home on the 15th of April, and all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the film. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of Moon Knight, which will be linked on screen right now. We go over all the Easter eggs in it, give our theories on what's going on with certain characters, so yeah, definitely go check it out right after this. With that out of the way, thanks for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, you've been the best, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.